Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the RGB LED, what it is, how to use it, and we'll be looking at 3 sample Arduino sketches that I made up for it, just to play around with it a little bit. So the RGB LED is called that because it can produce colors of red, green, and blue instead of just one color like our standard LED. It can do this because if we look inside of, if you look in there, there are actually, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, there are actually 3 LEDs inside of this one unit. And then if you look at the pins there, they're labeled RGB, and then that last one has a minus sign on it. So there, that's a common cathode there on the end, the minus sign. So they all share that same cathode, and then we have 3 different anodes, R, G, and B. And you can produce red, you can produce green, or you could turn on the blue light, or any mixture there in between. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So real quick, let's look at how the RGB LED works. I'll do a quick sketch. So your standard LED, like this one right here, you have your cathode here, and we attach that to ground, and then we put voltage here on this leg, usually going through a current limiting resistor, and then this lights up. That's all we got to do. That's how we achieve forward bias. That's how we light up the LED. So these RGB LEDs work the same way, except you have, I guess, something that looks more like this. And then here is the common cathode that goes to all of them. And there's actually 3 separate LEDs inside of there. And to light this one up, you apply voltage here, and then of course ground. This one you apply voltage here, this one you apply voltage here, and you can apply voltage to all 3 at the same time in different amounts using pulse width modulation, which we've covered in a previous module. So we're going to look at a few examples of that and how we can control the color and stuff, but I do want to note one thing. This does come from this kit that I have. Pretty cool kit. It's a Elingu, there it is right there, 37 sensor kit. It's got all kind of cool stuff in it, but the reason I mentioned that, I'm going to put a link to that kit down below too, by the way. The reason I mentioned that is because this is actually an RGB module, and the only thing that's different between this and just a standalone RGB LED is that you see there's an R3, there's an R2, and there's an R1 there. Each one of those is an SMD version of 150 ohm resistor. So we do not have to use current limiting resistors with this because they're built into this little board. If you're using a standalone RGB LED, you'll have to use your own current limiting resistors on each one of those anodes. So having said that, we're going to go ahead and hook this thing up. And for the first sketch, let me get here. There we go. For the first sketch, make sure I get this in the right ones because I had it hooked up. I pulled it off. We are going to have, and there we'll look at the sketch on the screen too, but we have the red pen is going to digital 9. The green pen right here, that's going to digital pin 10. And then the blue pin is going to digital pin 11. It's important that we select the right pins because each one of those, if you look at that where it says digital PWM and it's got the little tilde symbol, 9, 10, and 11 are all 3 PWM pins, which we do need if we want to vary the intensity of these of this RGB LED. If you don't care if you vary the intensity or not, you can actually use any of the pins, but you'll get full power either on or off whenever you do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first sketch. Really simple demonstration, and let me zoom in here on the LED. And please ignore those potentiometers for now. We are not going to be doing anything with them at this moment. All right, there we go. So if you look at the sketch, I have the pins all assigned. Red pin is 9, just like I said. Green pin is 10, blue pin is 11. Those are global variables. And we have nothing in the setup because it's a real simple little sketch. Oh, I did comment this out. You take these little comment marks off of here. And all we're going to do is analog write to each pin some value. In this case, we're doing 50, 50, 50. But let's start off. We'll start off with 0 there. If you feed, let's say you just want red, then you just feed the red pin. Since we're using PWM, we're gonna give it some signal between 0 to 255. 255 would be max brightness or 5 volts. So we're going to put 255 analog write on the red pin and 0 out the other two. So we should get just a red LED. Man, that looks orange in this light. In real life, it looks red. Promise. That color is not coming out true. Maybe I'm just overexposed here. Let me drop the exposure down. There we go. That looks red now, doesn't it? Okay. So we get, when we do 255 on that pin, just the red pin, we get just red. And then similarly, if we do 255 on the green pin, then we'll get a green LED. And then we'll do the blue pin. And I notice the blue one is interesting. It must be harder to make a blue LED than the other colors because it seems to not be as bright to me. But that's when we do 255 on the blue pin. And here's something to note. If you want to get white or close to white LED, you just apply 255 to each one and you get white. And then you can do different mixes to achieve your desired color. So that's a purple there. By doing red and blue, we get purple, of course. And then if we do red and green, this will be the last one I do. There we go. We'll upload. Red and green. It's kind of a yellowish, greenish, sort of. But anyway, so that is how you use the RGB LED. I want to do a real simple sketch to start with. And let's move on to another one. What are we going to do now? Okay, now we're going to do a random RGB program. So same program up top, red pin 9, green pin 10, blue pin 11. And in the setup portion, if you look up the documentation on generating random numbers, they tell you to seed the random number generator off of an analog pin that is not being used. In this case, we're going to seed it off of 17, which is A4. I'm sorry. Yes, A4. And 1, 2. Yeah, that's right. So we're going to random seed analog read 17, and that will seed the random number generator. If you want to know more about that, then of course just look up the documentation. But then in the loop portion, we're going to analog write to each pin, red pin random 255. That'll return some random number between 0 and 255. And it'll do it for the green pin, and then the blue pin, it'll hold for this delay of 300 milliseconds, and it'll start all back over again. So let's go ahead and run this sketch, and we'll see it pretty quickly cycle 3 times a second approximately, cycle through all these different colors and brightnesses, and it's kind of difficult. camera's not really doing a great job of picking this thing up, but it's just cycling through at random with different values for the 3 LEDs in the RGB LED unit. Okay, so there, you could play around with that some if you want to play with the delays and stuff like that. But let's move on to the last example of using the RGB LED. We are going to look at this one with these 3 potentiometers. So let me back it out some. There we go. So of course the LED is still hooked up to the same digital pins, but in this case I've added 3 potentiometers, 3 10K potentiometers, and yeah, the 3 legs there, the one on the far left on each one of these potentiometers I've attached to ground. The one on the far right I've attached to +5 volts coming off the power rail here on the breadboard. And then the center pin on each potentiometer is going over to an analog pin. And if you look at the sketch here, I have these defined up top as red pot, green pot, blue pot, 14, 15, 16. Those are the 3 analog pins, A0, A1, A2. And then the red pin, green pin, blue pin are still defined as they have been in the past 2 sketches. And now in the loop portion, we are just going to run one command on each color of the RGB. Let's see, we're going to do an analog right and then red pin. So it's going to go red pin, green pin, blue pin for each one of these commands. And it's going to map, because remember, whenever we use a potentiometer and we do a analog read up from a potentiometer, we're going to get some value between 0 and 1023. So we need to feed to our RGB LED some value between 0 to 255. So we're going to use the map statement here in our sketch, and then we're going to nest the analog read where we actually pull the value from our potentiometer, red pot, and then here's the map part here, 0, 1023 to 0, 255. So it's going to do that for each one of these colors. It's going to pull the value, map it to a value between 0 to 255, and then it's going to analog write that to that pin. So let's go ahead and run this sketch, and I think I have them all turned off. So we should start, we'll start with a 0 on each one of the pins there. And if I want all red, see I have them labeled R, G, and B. If I want just red, I'll just adjust this potentiometer. And now it's at 255 on the red LED. And this would probably be around 120 or so, whatever. So then I'll turn that off. And then green at full intensity. And then here is the blue at full intensity. And of course we can do any mix we like of those. If you do all 3, it's going to tend to go to white, sort of. Okay, here we go. I have red and blue at full blast, green all the way down. You get purple. And then here's the white with all of them full blast, and it's pretty bright. There's green and blue together. I don't even know what color. That's pretty. It's just a kind of a turquoise, bluish green, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you can play around with potentiometers and do different color mixes there. That's like, well, that's just pretty much green. There's some colors. Okay, wait. That is right there. That is shading. I don't know if we can get like a full-on yellow, but that's pretty close. That's pretty close to a full yellow right there. And if we this would not be a bad way to set it up, especially if you had some display either on the serial monitor or if you had an LCD hooked up. telling you what these values are if you wanted to, figure out, okay, well, how do I make this color or that color? And then you can fill around with these knobs, and then you can know exactly what the readings are, or what the values are for each one of the colors there. So there we go. That's 3 different sketches using the RGB LED, and hope y'all learned a little something there, guys. I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.